The following is a presentation of the Mat Talk Podcast Network.
Welcome to On the Mat. I am Kyle Klingman of the National Wrestling Hall of Fame Dan Gable Museum, along with our own John Mellencamp, Andy Hamilton of TrackWrestling.com. How are you, Andrew?
I'm doing well, Kyle. How about you?
I am doing so good because we get to be back after a week off. And I hate that. I hate that we didn't have it last week. That pains me that we have to come back and actually have a comeback show and have our post-NCAA championship show now, but we get to do it. We get to do it with a six-year senior. Anthony Ashnault will be our guest. What a great story he had, and what a great way to end a career that deserves a national championship.
Yeah. How about Rutgers? Climbing into the top 10 for the first time. Couple national champions.
Cool story.
Very cool story.
Man, you just think about what they had. You have, two undefeated four-time state champions?
The only two.
Only two. Okay, so only two in New Jersey. They're both at Rutgers. You have a six-year senior that was injured last year, bumps up to 149. It was on the podium three times before that. So first four-time All-American, national champion. And then you have a guy, Nick Suriano, that transfers from Penn State, gets his ankle broke at the Oklahoma State meet his freshman year, transfers out, didn't even go to nationals that year, transfers out, gets second last year to Spencer Lee, bumps up in weight, and the toughest weight class in the country by far, 133, and wins it, becomes the first national champion in program history, and you got two national champions in the same year. You're right, man. Rutgers is a great, great story.
You're saying by far on 133.
I don't think it's even
really
a question. What would you throw in there?
I would say maybe 65.
Okay.
You've got
that'd be number two, but I don't think
two-time champ who didn't win it. You got a guy who in 2 years has never lost a regular season match.
Okay.
Who didn't win it. You got a junior world champ who's 8th seed, wins it as a freshman.
Yeah.
There's some dudes in that weight class.
I would say the top, well, if you got the guy winning, it was the
74.
8th seed.
74, the 3 seed. It's a returning national champ. But to your point, I think depth-wise, 33 is the best weight class, no doubt.
When you looked at it top to bottom. But 65, we had talked about that. That run was going to be so tough for Marinelli. And it ended with a 7th place finish for him. But, man, it was not going to be easy. And we said that if anyone could do it, it would be him. But I still believe that he can win it next year. I don't think you can look at national placings based on that. I think he's still a huge factor next year.
He was close to winning that match against Mekhi Lewis. He had a single leg up in the air. Maybe didn't take it quite high enough to finish that shot in the third period with about a minute. I don't know. I watched so much wrestling, I can't even remember. I think it was third period. He had the leg up in the air and didn't finish it. And then Mekhi Lewis wins that position on the edge, and it was a difference maker.
Did that surprise you that he won?
No.
Yeah.
No, I watched his run through the bracket over in Slovakia last year. I'm like, this guy's going to be a handful. He's super hard to take down and got a little offense to go with it too. I think he's going to be even harder to beat in the future as he continues to develop that offense. But, man, really impressive.
He is, man. And just the theme keeps being just how good these guys are at such a young age. And as you know, we just renovated the National Wrestling Hall of Fame Dan Gable Museum, and one of the perks is that we have all the NCAA championship finals matches. Not all of them, but a good share of them. And so I took the time to watch all of Lincoln McElraby's finals matches because he's one of those marquee freshmen where you say, hey, he set the tone, did it as a true freshman. And one of those guys that did it during an era that it was not commonplace to do it as a true freshman. He and Pat Smith were in that early time frame where you just didn't do it that much, and they set some trends. But he just said these guys today are so good, so fast, and he just almost said, I couldn't compete with these guys. Now, I don't quite believe that, but he pretty much has given such a tip of the cap to these guys, and they are so good. I don't even know what to say. He just shakes his head at how good these guys have gotten. And this is coming from a guy that was in that frame, had that ability to do it at an early age. Shows you how good they are. It's a different era, and we've talked about that so much, but you have to keep talking about it because they keep doing it.
Yeah. A year ago, Spencer Lee, Yianni Diakomahalis as true freshman. This year, Mekhi Lewis as a redshirt freshman. Used to be probably back in the McElravy era. It was rare when just a freshman won it, period, right?
Yeah.
And even McElravy, remember what? He came out and did he get majored his first match in Carver Hawkeye Arena?
Close. It was 14-7. So,
okay.
Yeah.
So I remember you read the book and there were the Gable book. What was it, On the Mat?
Wrestling Life.
No. The one that Nolan wrote.
Oh,
Season on the Mat.
Season on the Mat. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, I think there were some second thoughts, right? I mean, that people were wondering, what in the world? Why did we do this?
Yeah.
Why'd they pull him out? And then, of course, he gets, he becomes, as time goes along, becomes the guy that they anticipated he'd be, and wins a national title in an epic match with Jerry Abbas.
It was, yeah.
One of the best matches all time in NCAA finals history. What he scored, three takedowns a final minute or so?
Yeah, just wore him out. Yeah, it was a furious comeback, which leads into a topic. I'm so glad you brought this up because you didn't even know I wanted to go this direction. When was the last time you saw one of those epic comebacks? They don't happen like they used to.
No.
Is it because guys are so good now?
I think it might have to do with the weight management rules. Would be my guess. We should get Gable on sometime and ask him and ask some other coaches that were around in the late 90s. I think that's part of it. I think guys are in better shape. I think guys are better too. I mean, they're more conditioned to hold up. And I also think, Iowa had this mystique back then, right? That they were going to own the third period. And then when some guys started breaking through and holding up and winning close, tough matches against Hawkeyes, and maybe that's gone away a little bit, where Iowa's lost that edge a little bit. But it's a fascinating topic. We don't see a whole lot of it. When you do, it's not somebody scoring 4 takedowns in the final minute and breaking somebody. It's more along the lines of a feet to back situation, or getting on top and scoring a couple turns, getting to their positions if they're a hammer on top. I think that's more what we're accustomed to seeing, right?
We are accustomed to seeing that. And I think the way the matches are executed, and that's what's fun about being able to see historical matches. I went back and watched Royce Alger's senior year win against Dan Mayo of Penn State. And if you look at the rules now and you look at them and you transpose them and you just say, all right, here's how they would have applied, it's just completely different. It's amazing how much the sport has changed. And then you go back in further, watch matches from 1949. These guys stand straight up the entire time. It's not even comparable to what you would see today. Absolutely standing straight up. It almost looks ridiculous to the point where if you took a quality junior high guy and you just said, hey, you get to go in there in your comparable weight class, and they didn't know, I think you would beat those guys. Not saying they couldn't get better. They're better than those guys, but it just was executed so much differently that you kind of giggle because it's changed so much over the course of time. And it's so funny just how even 10 years ago, the fake injury timeouts were part of the narrative, and now it's the challenge brick. And I just think the sport has evolved so much since we've started watching that the sport is in a new and different place. And I think it's only going to keep changing based on what we've seen in the last couple of years.
Yeah, I mean, think about some of the rules that have come into play. Neutral danger because of the scrambling. Think about how much scrambling has changed in the last 15 years or so. And guys like Ben Askren and Mark Perry at the beginning of that, how they were so well versed in some of those positions. And for a long time, I think the technique of scrambling was really underestimated. So that's changed a lot. I think, you just look at certain holds, how they kind of come and go. The fireman's carry kind of went away for a long time. And then Spencer Lee comes back, and you see it at the world level a little bit more. So it's kind of interesting how holds kind of come and go. There was such a low single fad there for a long time. with John Smith, Cale Sanderson. Don't see as many ankle picks right now is what we did maybe 15, 20 years ago.
Yeah,
it's weird how positions kind of come and go.
Yeah, it is. I mean, you just see there was a time where cradles were pretty popular, and you saw just that Gregor Gillespie style for a little bit, and Joe Heskett was good with that, and you had this era where that became the fad, and then something else changes. But think about some of the stuff you don't see. You just don't see a lot of inside trips. You don't see as much on the front headlock position like a Mike Mena used to do. It goes in waves, and I think part of it is because these guys know how to defend it so well that you just can't get away with anything sloppy. And not saying those things were sloppy, but it's just so refined. And I think the rules force you to be refined that it's not allowing you to open up at times.
Well, I think video plays a big role in it too in scouting.
Oh yeah.
People know that Dayton Fix has an unbelievable inside trip. And so you're probably not going to let him, you're probably not going to underhook him like you would somebody else. So I think that plays a role in it. The guys nowadays, you think back 15, 20 years ago and the amount of video that you had on people, the amount of scouting that went into some of that stuff. I mean, today you can multiply it, I don't know, by probably 30 with what's out there, if not more. So I think that plays a big role in some of the stuff too.
Yeah. It's like you used to go to the video store and you'd just way over the options of what movie you were going to pick. And it might take an hour to go to Family Video. And then finally you get your choice and you decide to watch that movie, and then you got to find a way to return it. Now you get to pick anything you want at any time because it's all on demand, and you don't have to travel anywhere to find that video. It's all right there, and you can study it, and it's at your fingertips. And I think trackwrestling.com, as we've talked about, there's a portal to be able to do that. You can buy all the championship matches after the fact.
All the archives,
All the archives are right there. And why wouldn't you get that package to have everything available at your fingertips? It's incredible.
We got to pump the brakes here for a second, Kyle. John Mellencamp at the top.
Oh, yeah.
What was that all about?
Well, I was at Ace Hardware, and I heard small town, and it made me think of you, and you are from a small town.
I am from a small town.
And I just thought this is so appropriate that you are the John Mellencamp because you're from a small town. I love the song. Gable, it's one of the few songs that he says, if that song plays, he goes, I might get up and dance at a banquet.
Really?
He just loves it. And I love the song too. And it reminds me of Larry Bird because they had a video compilation with Small Town and Larry Bird. So just a ton of reasons that it should be your nickname for this week.
See, when you said Mellencamp, like the first song that was in my head was Pink Houses, and I didn't know where you were going with that. I don't know why that song instantly popped into my head, but
you like that song?
That's a good song.
Yeah.
That's a good song.
He's
Jack
a good
and
artist.
Diane.
Yeah. He's got some great lines, and I just think he had a great era of songs.
Oh, yeah.
I think we're probably expanding the scope of your nickname. I think it goes well beyond the small town now. Pink Houses is brilliant. Jack and Diane, it's awesome. So
we're in a beige house here, I would say. You say call this beige?
Yeah. It's beige. I don't see too many pink houses.
Overlooking the banks of Birdsall Pond Park.
Yeah. It's right over there. It's a beautiful view. It's a beautiful view, Andrew. But we get a chance to really dive in deep with Anthony Ashnault. Just want to follow up and just finalize the national tournament before we get to the U.S. Open and talk about what's coming up with the international scene. It was a interesting NCAA championship from the vantage point that it was great, but I think that the crowd didn't have the energy after last year just based on not having the team race. And I don't know that we consciously understood that, but last year when you have Ohio State and Penn State battling it out, and every match you're just watching Penn State, Ohio State, and it's a dual meet. That was so exhilarating last year that I think this year with Penn State just gonna win it. They are. I think that took a little bit out of just that ability to appreciate the championship just from a pure entertainment point of view.
Yeah, I think so. I think we need that next year. I think we need a couple, 3 teams to step up to Penn State's level and make it a race, and that could be awesome up in Minneapolis, US Bank Stadium. 30,000 people.
Yeah.
in the seats, maybe more, hopefully. I think that could be the next year is going to be really fascinating.
It is, but in talking to Gable recently about this, you can start thinking, all right, another team's going to come into the fold. You say Iowa, I think they have the most returning points if certain things happen or don't happen. But then he said, all right, then you start looking at what Penn State might have, and it's all speculation. So we can't say any of this is going to transpire. We don't want to be part of a rumor mill, but Seth Gross, you hear that he might go there. I don't know one way or the other, but you hear that he might be interested. Kyle Cannell sounds like he's going to go there, might fill in at 97. And it sounds like Cassar might get his 6th year. And then who else?
Shakur
Rashid might get it. So then
look, they're going to have a great team, right?
Well,
it doesn't matter
regardless.
how many guys they graduate. They're going to have a great team.
They are.
Whether it's these guys coming in or Aaron Brooks being in the lineup right away and some other guys, Michael Beard. They recruit exceptionally well and they plan it out exceptionally well. And they're going to be in a spot where they've got probably 8, 9, 10 guys who are really strong wrestlers in the mix to be on the podium, probably 3 or 4 that are in the mix to win titles. And so if you have desires of getting in the race to win a title, you better be ready to field the team that can score upwards of 120 points. Cause I think that's probably the neighborhood they're going to be living in for quite a while.
And they do. They have a system, man, and it works. They get guys cranking in there. And I think to your point, Andy, is that it really doesn't matter graduation or just who might be in and out or injuries. They do find ways to fill those holes. And they're not holes because they just keep pumping guys in, and they're a really strong team as far as how they develop people. It's a quality system right now.
Well, I think following up on my point from before, like, you better not expect Penn State to come back to the pack. You better raise your level and go get them.
Yeah.
If you're going to get to that level. But, because everybody expected them to take a step back after David Taylor and Ed Ruth, and they kind of took a break for a year maybe, or took a step back for a year where they decided, all right, we're going to redshirt Bo Nickel. We're going to redshirt Jason Nolf. We're going to redshirt Zane Rutherford and Nico Megaludis. And then, they come out guns blazing after that and reel off 4 more. So when you've got guys like Nickel and Nolf, who are all-time greats, combined 6 losses, combined 6 titles, that's pretty phenomenal stuff. And you're looking at, adding up the numbers on Jason Nolf for a piece that I wrote. What was he, like 117-3 with 86% bonus point rate? Probably the best guy to never win a Hodge. I think you could make that argument. And then because he's getting beat for the Hodge by teammates, Zane Rutherford and Bo Nickel.
And 6 combined titles, and they're both in the finals 4 times, and they're pretty darn close to winning those titles as freshmen. I mean, he takes Aymar to the wire, and Nickel loses to Miles Martin in that just shootout their freshman year. So you're looking at potentially 2 4-timers in the same year, and they're pretty darn close to be able to get that accomplished. And what was the stat that it was the first time 2 3-timers had won in the same year since the 30s?
On the same team.
On the same team
since Oklahoma State 1939.
Man.
80 years.
That's just strong work.
That's where guys are standing straight up, right?
Yeah, they were. I want you to watch that. I want you to see.
I'm going to.
What that looks like.
I got to give you a lot of credit, Kyle. The museum's immaculate. It's awesome. If you're ever in the Cedar Valley, get out, check out the National Wrestling Hall of Fame Dan Gable Museum. Unbelievable what that place looks like now. And we were joking about being too high in your stance with guys in the 40s. How about Abe Lincoln?
Yeah.
Way too high in his stance.
Yeah. Well, I think we're going to do some videos of some archives there and release those on track. So looking forward to doing a few little clips on some of our artifacts and our archives that we have there. And we gave a lengthy tour that got some great play. I know Intermat did a story on that, and you did a good walkthrough there. So glad to be able to do that, but just super excited about what people can see there. And I think having the NCAA championship finals match is going to be a great reason to get in there and just spend 8 hours and just watch as many of those matches as possible. Cause it really does show how much the sport has changed, even from 10 years ago. You just really get the vibe of how much it's changed. Just with rule changes, you forget 4-point near fall. They didn't have that for a while. And even going back to Gable's era, the near fall points were awarded not by a count, but by how far your back was off the mat. They didn't even have a count. So it was just based on angle. So if you did an angle, it was worth 2 points. If you got the angle a little bit further, it was 3 points.
Wow.
And so it's
matches
just
determined by riding time only, not even keeping score.
Yeah. You just go way back to that. And then you had these overtime rules that were actual matches. You go 3 1-minute periods if it was overtime. So just a lot of historical changes that you really get to document with that. So it was a lot of fun, and it was good to be able to give that tour of the Gable Museum, and hopefully people come by and see the wrestling room and see how that goes. Drew Foster, you just did an article on him. What a great story that is. We have to make sure we mention his run to the finals. You went through and talked about all of the credentials around him of the other 9 champions. And here you got a guy that didn't win state, 15-18 as a freshman, and then he wins it his senior year. That's got to be the story of the tournament as far as just the underdog story of the tournament. What a great story for Drew Foster in Northern Iowa. First champion since 2000, Division I.
Yeah, it's incredible. I mean, the guy finishes second his senior year in high school. You got people saying, like, to Randy Pugh, the Northern Iowa assistant, like, this guy's not D1 material. And, you know, there's something about him that Randy really liked. He thought there was some athleticism there. Drew had been a 4-sport athlete, if I'm not mistaken, a really good football player, and just had some people down there that believed in him and thought his best days were ahead. I don't know that you can really predict that one day he's going to become an NCAA champion, but I think it speaks volumes to believing in yourself and sticking to the process. You never know where you're going to end up. You just put your head down and work and work as hard as you can and listen to your coaches and get yourself surrounded by the right people that believe in you and bring you along in a positive direction, and see where you wind up. I think it gives a lot of people hope. And it's funny, you know, I wrote about how he almost wound up at Coe College. And I got a chance to talk to John Ostendorp, the co-coach, last weekend.
Wow.
Last weekend at Folkstyle Nationals, and we were talking about Drew a little bit, and I said, that's going to make your job a little harder now. Because now everybody that's kind of you might think is on that fringe is thinking, well, better not give up on my dream yet, because a guy like Drew Foster goes and wins a D1 title. So,
gosh, and what'd you say in there? It was Northern Iowa, Northern Illinois, and Coe.
Yep.
I think those were the 3 schools. And it's just, you just can't predict this sometimes, that you got a guy that came all the way through and won a national championship. And then you go with a guy that has stellar credentials. People throughout the year questioned him. He got pinned during the year by Nick Piccinini. Spencer Lee from Iowa comes all the way through and just vindicates himself, shows why he is that, 3-time age level world champion, and is one of the best in the world at what he does. And you have to give him so much credit for having a gritty year, because he really did have that microscope on him from day one. And for him to come through like that, just face some setbacks, but getting that done, it was a big deal for Spencer Lee. What a great run.
Yeah, and I think you got to give a lot of credit to the Iowa coaches too, Tom and Terry Brands in particular, and in working on, you know, when you get a guy like Spencer Lee who's lost, a handful of times in the last decade maybe, and hadn't been pinned since he was 9 years old, and dealing with that the last match of the regular season. All right, we got to turn this around, and then goes to Big Tens and wrestles a couple pretty tough matches, and then takes a loss to Sebastian Rivera in the conference finals. Probably let a match get away there with, some circumstances at the end where a lot of different things unraveled against him. Deal with it's weird that a guy that has the accolades that he has could be dealing with some doubt, but and listen to Spencer's comments, you're dealing with some spots that you haven't been in. maybe ever. And they were able to get that turned around. I think that he and the Iowa staff deserve a lot of credit for being able to do that, and great performance throughout the tournament. Really looked good all the way through. And when the match against Piccinini got tough there in the third period, and Piccinini was starting to get some things going, Spencer was able to turn it around. And then in the match against Mueller in the finals, he controlled things pretty much throughout, with the exception of getting ridden there in the second period.
And Mueller, I think if you didn't follow him closely, I don't think it was really a surprise to either of us that he had that kind of a run, because he made the U23 world team.
Yep.
And I just felt like he was a guy that was getting overlooked a little bit by people, had a undefeated record, but I don't think he was maybe on a lot of people's radars because he wrestles in the ACC and didn't have a ton of matches, maybe came in 18-0. I can't quite remember what it was, but had a nice tournament run. And I think he's still going to be a factor next year. And he's a fun guy to watch, tough out. He's a tough guy to beat, but
absolutely
he had a tough year. And then it was, Yianni, when you watch him wrestle, I don't think I ever think he's going to lose.
He's the coolest cat on the face of the earth.
It's almost like, so he's down by 7 with 10 seconds to go. You kind of feel like he's going to win. The other guy I felt that way with was Mark Perry. I just felt like, all right, he's down. He's going to win.
You're going to find a way to cradle somebody, or.
So you're never nervous with the guy, and he does it. He pulls it out right at the end, and he just stays calm. So Yianni had a good tournament. We're going to talk with Anthony Ashnault. We talked about 165 with Mekhi Lewis. Nolf we've covered a little bit with his dominant run and how good he is. You go at heavyweight. I think we probably both thought Gable Steveson was going to turn that around as a true freshman just because of his ability, and Cassar just stayed solid and had a great game plan. And you saw another great story. It wasn't in that same vein as Drew Foster. But,
close, though.
Yeah. But
close. He didn't qualify for the state tournament until he was a senior, and he won it.
Yeah.
And then stay in the course. He makes a junior world team as a freshman, and then really doesn't get a full-time opportunity until this year. Up a weight from a year ago, doesn't make their lineup for the postseason last year, despite beating Colin Moore in the regular season. Again, this speaks to Penn State's depth and the options that they have in place, and then comes out and just has such a incredible season this year. So that was also one of the great stories of the year. College wrestling, Anthony Cassar coming back doing what he did.
Well, end with this before we get to our interview with Anthony Ashnault. Anyone that is on your radar that is coming up next year that we didn't see? So maybe a high school guy that we might see coming in. Is there anyone that excites you coming into next season, or maybe redshirted that we get a chance to see in the next season that we can start getting excited about early?
Aaron Brooks is the first guy to come to mind. Now, I don't know that he's going to be in the lineup at Penn State right away. It'd be interesting to see what they do there at 184. But, man, he's going to be hell on wheels once he gets out there. Really excited to watch him.
Yeah.
That would be the first guy that comes to mind. I think, just some of these guys coming up in the senior class. We just put out our 2020 rankings, our class of 2019 rankings. 2020 is coming out as well. Really intrigued to see if Andrew Alirez is in the Northern Colorado lineup right away. I think you talk about guys that can change the face of a program, and look at what Ben Askren did at Missouri. Look at what probably Nick Wisdowski, maybe give some credit to Darian Caldwell at North Carolina State, but I think of the Pat Popolizio era, and it's Nick Wisdowski as the guy there that really helped change the face of that program. For Andrew Alirez, our number one guy in the class of 2019, to stay at home and go to Northern Colorado, along with several other top 100 guys. I think Troy Nickerson and Michael Moreno have done an incredible job of recruiting out there, and that staff, keeping these top-notch Colorado kids at home. So I'm excited to see what Aliras can do. He's a guy that technically a year ago in freestyle, he's a guy that at the Schultz, this January posted a win against Joey Laser. He beat two-time NCAA champ Dean Heil. He's coming into college with some serious credentials. So, eager to see what he can do.
How about the guy that beat Aaron Brooks for that cadet team that he replaced, Travis Whitlake?
Yeah.
What do you think about he redshirted? Any idea what he might look like next year, how he'll fill in?
A guy that's won a ton growing up and then had that injury that kept him from going over to Greece and wrestling in the Cadet World Championships. And as you mentioned, Aaron Brooks takes his place and goes on and wins the Cadet World title that year after losing in the trials to Whitlake. Will be interesting to see how the pieces fit together for Oklahoma State next year because they've got some of those guys coming back and which weights do they all go? I know Oklahoma State's got a lot of depth and yeah, absolutely eager to see what Whitlake can do in season number 1.
Yeah, Oklahoma State has some firepower coming in.
Sure, and especially you start looking down the road and what they've got committed in their 2020 class, really impressive haul that they've got put together, and I think that they'll be in the mix for one of the guys we've got ranked 1 and 2, whether Braxton Amos, who's number 2 guy on the list, has mentioned Oklahoma State as one of his 5 finalists, and in talking to AJ Ferrari in the past as well, the number 1 guy on the list, he's mentioned Oklahoma State as well. So if the Cowboys could land one more of those guys, you're talking huge haul for John Smith and company.
Daniel Kirkviet, what do you think there?
Yeah, will be intriguing to see how soon he cracks the Ohio State lineup, whether they elect to bulk him up a little bit, whether he's ready to go year 1, what the plan is there. But another guy that whenever he takes the mat is going to be equipped probably to be in the mix to win a title.
Yeah, I'd love to see him bump up to heavyweight so we can have some Stevenson
he will.
matches.
Yeah, that's I think the plan. I mean, you're going to see him and Gable and start looking down the line. Colton Schultz, Mason Paris is young. Tony Cassiope won a couple Triple Crowns. So it's heavyweight is going to be deep for years to come.
Who would ever thought?
I wrote that in my piece for this week, the writing time piece. That think back to 2009, that era where we'd never see anybody light up the scoreboard at heavyweight. I mean, in the entire tournament in 2009, I wrote this line in there. There were 5 matches in the heavyweight bracket where the winners reached double digits in points. Care to take a guess how many there were this year?
The winner reached double digits. Yep. There were 5, you said?
5 in 2009.
Might say double, 10?
17.
17?
Number 2 and number 3 on the most points scored list at this year's tournament. Number 2, Gable Steveson. Number 3, Amar Desi.
Really?
Yeah. 63 and 60 points. The only guy that scored more was Pat Glory.
I would have never guessed that. That's unreal. We're in a new trend for the sport, and heavyweights are in that high level class that we've been desperately wanting. And you can go back even further. We've talked about John Lockhart that year so many times in 2001. Go back and study that tournament.
What did Lockhart? He never, he won in OT pretty much the whole way through, or tiebreakers. So. Let's pull up the Lockhart bracket.
Yeah, the Lockhart file.
It's amazing.
It's amazing. And it's even more amazing. Tommy Rowlands was good too. And Lockhart was so hard to score on. He was so stingy on defense.
And that dude won the coin flip, man. If he would have been in Vegas, he'd be a rich man.
And again, different rules at the time too, where it wasn't the double tiebreaker.
Lockhart, 4 seed over James Hummel, 5-4 tiebreaker in round 1, over Jake Verselli, 4-2 in OT in the second round. Quarters, he beat Matt Brink 3-2. Didn't even have to go to overtime for that one. Semis, 2-1 win and a tiebreaker over Garrett Lowney. Finals, 2-1 win and a tiebreaker over Tommy Rowlands.
Man.
So we're talking about Gable Steveson scoring 60 points in the tournament. Lockhart scored 9, 12, 14, 16. It was good enough to win a title.
Yeah.
He's a national champion.
Yep. Part of that's just a different era, and part of it goes back to the rule changes. I think it's a combination of factors of truly if you take one thing away, we absolutely are in the best times for the sport of wrestling right now. You are living it, so embrace what we have because we are in a special time, and we're going to have a special time talking to our guest, Anthony Ashnault.
Before we get to him,
all right,
care to take a guess on how many double-digit scores there were in 2002 at heavyweight? 2001 at heavyweight.
That year you're talking about? Double-digit scores
for winners.
For the winners. 5 again?
There were 4.
4?
Yep.
Okay. So if you took the under, you got it. We're going to take the over on 5 years of college with 6 years for Anthony Ashnault. He got that injury hardship year, and he took advantage. Our guest today, NCAA champion. I know that has to feel good for him. He's the first 4-time All-American. Rutgers program history, was the first undefeated 4-time state champion in New Jersey state history, and he's with us. Anthony Ashnault, how are you?
Yeah, I'm excited, man. Excited to share some stuff. It's been a good ride since the tournament.
Yeah, man. I mean, just to hear that, you've gone through so much. 6-year senior, and you have an opportunity this year. You bump up to 149 pounds. How does it feel to get this done?
It just feels awesome. I mean, the best feeling for me is just feeling people around me with the same excitement for me winning. Just I feel like I was able to have a lot of help along the way, and it showed. I feel like when I won it, getting the second guy, Rutgers really cementing our name and cementing my name for sure, just cementing my legacy a little bit for college wrestling.
Anthony, I saw you and Nick Suriano were at the New Jersey Devils game the other night, being honored there. What's the championship tour look like for you here in the last couple of weeks?
Yeah, it's been awesome. I mean, New Jersey wrestling's huge, and they support their winners, that's for sure. They've been I was able to go to a Nets game. That wasn't really getting honored, but it was just something like that was an opportunity that was brought to me, and then I got to go to the Devils game, and that was a crazy experience. They gave us these jerseys with our weight classes and our last names on the back. And I'm trying to advertise to get to a Yankee game, maybe try to get a first pitch or something, but it's been cool. It's been really cool, but for now, the focus is starting to shift for me right now. Actually, just I'm looking forward to wrestling in some freestyle events and moving on to the senior level. So I'm trying to work my way into what I'm going to be doing in the upcoming months and where I'm going to be training at.
Yankees keep having injuries. You might actually be pitching for them here pretty soon.
I don't know. I had shoulder surgery, so I don't know if I can throw a baseball anymore too well.
Are you a Yankees fan?
Yeah, I am. I'm not much of a hockey fan, but that was still a really cool honor to just be there.
How have you found time to go to class? Do you get mobbed? Do people talk about it on campus? What's that like?
It's been insane, really, at Rutgers. Just the support. I went to class the Tuesday after nationals, and my class had a cake for me, and like it was unreal. They served the cake, and then they let the whole class out, and I was just like, dang, like this is a big deal. Just not for me. Like it was a big deal for the university. And, they definitely back us. It's been a crazy experience in the last 2 weeks. Just going around in my hometown because I live at home this semester, and everyone's just excited, and they just really show their support.
Let's go back to choosing Rutgers. Your head coach, Scott Goodale, said that you could have gone anywhere that you wanted to go, but you chose to stay home and go to Rutgers. Why did you think that was the best fit for you?
You know, like it was a really hard decision in my life, and it was an even harder decision because my brother was coaching on the Rutgers staff, not really coaching, but the director of wrestling operations. So it was hard. It was hard to have a good relationship with everyone, and it was just a stressful time. But at the end of the day, I wanted to do what really came true this year, just like take where Rutgers was and propel them in the direction they were already starting the momentum. But I knew I could get it done at home, and I saw myself being able to be a national champ at home and being a world and Olympic champ at home. And it's all starting to become a reality now, and it's so surreal to see just some of the things that came to fruition after everything.
If you hadn't have gone to Rutgers, was there a program that was close where you were teetering on and you might have gone instead of Rutgers?
Yeah, I mean, my final three schools were like Rutgers, Michigan, and Penn State, and Michigan was really, really close. I wanted to go to Michigan. I thought a couple nights I would go to bed thinking I was going to commit to Michigan the next day, and it just didn't feel right yet. Kept not feeling right, and then it was just a gut feeling. I remember I called Coach Goodale, and I was like crying. I was like, I'm going to come to Rutgers. He's like, you all right? And I was like, yeah, man, it's just been stressful. And I just hung up the phone. And it was just a funny start to our relationship, but it was a tough decision, and I'm happy I made the right one.
Interesting journey for Scott Goodale. Here's a guy who was a high school wrestling coach and then wanted the challenge, wanted to get into college coaching game. And it's a learning curve once you get in there. But what did you like about Coach Goodale when he recruited you?
Yeah, I love his energy. I'm sure you, as fans, and you guys are very close to the sport, you can see his energy when he's coaching, and just he brings that every single day, the same pop. So it's easy to get excited and be excited about wrestling and what you're doing. I mean, the best quality that I see in him as a coach, like, you want to go in and talk to coach about an issue you're having. Maybe it's like an injury or something about your knee. You want some time off. You go in there to talk to him. You come out. You're wrestling 2 days every day the next week. It's just something. He's a very good motivator, and I love him for that quality.
What are New Jersey fans like? In talking to Coach Goodale, he said it's a passionate fan base that has high expectations. Do you feel like those expectations were realistic?
Were you saying moving forward, or?
Well, I just meant during your time in college. Do you feel like you got unrealistic expectations? You're the first 4-time state champion, undefeated. Do you feel like they had higher expectations than what was realistic?
I mean, like, when you're losing, everyone's against you. We would go a couple years not having the best years, postseason years, and everyone's naysaying, and then we have a great year like this year, and everyone's like praising us, and we're getting all the support, and we get to do all, like you guys are saying, like a world tour. It's just how the world works, I think. But it's definitely they saw a 4-time state champion from New Jersey in high school. That's not an easy feat. We're one state tournament, and the expectations for me were the same way. I felt the same expectations. I thought I was going to be a 4-time NCAA champion I had coming in, so I didn't really mind that.
What was that injury year like? You got that 6th year. What was it like to have to go through that last year and just battle an injury and stay positive?
It was really hard because they don't tell you if you're going to get the 6th year until after the NCAA tournament, so it's like you got to get over the fear that you might not get that year back, and it's like everyone's asking you. When I was working, like maybe a lot of clubs are working one-on-one privates with some kids for the year, and going around, everyone's asking you if you got it, if you know what's going on. It's like you don't really know. You submit your paperwork and you wait, and that was really stressful. But I'm just so blessed I got the opportunity, and I feel like people were able to see how much enjoyment I had with that opportunity through my wrestling this year, which is an awesome feeling. That's something I wanted to get back to.
You said after the championships that you fell back in love with the sport. How did you fall back in love? Was it just the break? Did you get a chance to do something different? How did you really connect with wrestling again? I had a lot of time I had 2 surgeries, so being out that whole season competition, not traveling with the team, I had a lot of downtime just to think about everything, and a lot more downtime than I had in my first 4 years of college. So that was the time I took to just figure out what I wanted to do in life. If I wanted to be around the sport of wrestling, if I wanted to move on, if I was ready to be done wrestling, if I was going to compete after college, maybe try to come back at the very end of the season and just get maybe conferences and NCAAs. And those were just thoughts and conversations I had with myself and people close to me. And it came down to it. I just really do love wrestling, and I love competing. It's just maybe I just needed a little refresh and take some serious time off to realize that. But I love it, and I just bulked up, went up to 149. That helped a lot. I wasn't having to
struggled to make weight ever, so I was enjoying going to practice every day. And this year was just a lot of fun for me.
Nick Suriano will go down as the first NCAA champion. He won it at 133 pounds, and you graciously said, hey, we didn't both win it. He got the first one. Do you feel like having him win first helped you when you got to go a couple matches later just to free you up?
Hey, you started cutting out a little bit. Can you repeat that question?
Yeah, sure. I just was mentioning that Nick Suriano will go down as the first NCAA champion in program history. Did that free you up to be able to just wrestle free and easy when it was your turn?
Oh yeah, definitely. Definitely. I mean, it also just like got a lot of momentum. Our coaches were smiling and excited. There's very, very good vibes in my ear, and I was just very confident. Taking the mat after seeing Nick do his thing and literally get out when you thought the match was going to be over, 9 seconds left, gets out, and you just knew, like, I feel like I knew in that moment, I was like, let's go, this is our night. It was very, very not relaxing. I wasn't relaxed because I was still nervous, but just the nerves definitely went away a little bit after seeing Nick win. I was like, I can go do my thing now. Not the pressure, like, I got to do this kind of thing.
Anthony, let's rewind a couple years to when Nick Suriano was still at Penn State. At what point when and how did you hear that he might be looking to come back home to Jersey, and what were your initial reactions through that process?
Well, we have the regional training center at Rutgers, so he was like home after the school year and just started like coming once in a while, and then like started coming a lot more and more like as time moved on, and we all started getting a little better relationship with him. And I think the best thing for that process, like if I was at the regional training center practice, he was there, and I was able to wrestle with him. We were just able to connect on the wrestling mat. We were really good for each other. We always fed off each other. There was times when we were little kids that we were in the same practice and doing the same kind of thing, and we were both dominant as we grew up. So it was almost like it was inevitable. But the process, once he started showing up more, and then he had to go through. I don't really know the whole process he had to go through, but it's out there somewhere on the internet.
What's the biggest misconception about Nick Suriano?
What's the biggest one of them?
Misconception?
Perception?
I'm sorry, misconception.
What's the conception?
Well, just that.
What do you?
Yeah, I just.
I know.
Think,
what do you guys think? Like, what do you see? What do you guys think?
Well, I guess from what I saw a really grateful, humble guy after his win, but I think sometimes he gets piled on top of during the season, and I just think sometimes it was unfair. Maybe the way he got some shots and just the way he was perceived. And I was just wondering, from someone who's been inside, what do you think?
I think I could give you a good answer. I think that the best thing about Nick is he takes this is his life. This is his livelihood. He takes it super serious, and he definitely outworks everyone I've ever been around, and I've been around some very high-level athletes. He's the first one in there. Maybe not the first one in the locker room, but he's the last one out practicing by far every day doing what he's got to do. But when he's outside of the sport, he's a normal kid, man. He's just like any one of us other college kids. So I think people see that and think that's like his whole life, but he shuts it down when he's outside of it, and he's one of my good friends on the team. So,
how does it feel to finish off undefeated? That's a pretty remarkable feat. That's got to feel good to know that you locked it down with an undefeated season.
Yeah, that felt great. Definitely a little nervous going to that last match. Just like some of the thoughts, like Micah Jordan was one of the better guys I felt, and beating him 2 times was tough. I was like, I'm gonna have to beat this guy 3 times. And undefeated season. This is it. Like, and it was just exciting, really, to go out there with a bang and finish the match on top, riding them. And that last minute of the match just felt great. It felt like my whole season summed up in that last minute.
What do you want to do next? Do you want to keep competing?
Yeah, I want to compete, win an Olympic gold medal. That's the goal.
So what weight class?
65 kilograms.
Okay. And then it's my understanding you're going to stick around and be a volunteer assistant coach. Has that role already been established?
That has not been established yet. There's a couple different opportunities and options. So right now I'm just looking into everything. My goal moving forward is to be an Olympic champ next, a world champion. So whatever I have to do to get me there in the quickest amount of time, that's what I'm going to do. If coaching has to be put on hold for a little bit, it will be, but eventually I'll be coaching, but it just might not be right this second.
What kind of mentality you take into training? You talked about Nick Suriano. When you approach a practice, what do you want to get out of it when you start that first second of practice?
Well, this year was a lot different. I've always been like a big believer in like focusing in an area you want to get better at, maybe having a specific thing you want to work on in your head, like separate than all the technique the coach is showing, maybe like just something you're going to work on your own in your own head going into that practice. But on top of that, this year that helped me a lot. I just like thought about having fun, and maybe it was like goofing off in the first couple minutes to practice to loosen up a little bit, but I just wanted to be loose and enjoy myself and really take in. It was my last year competing with a team. Like I don't get to ever go compete with a brotherhood of a team anymore. And I just enjoyed all those little moments, the locker room talk, and that made it really fun for me. So I kept the serious side with like, I would say like with a good mixture, just a good balance, you know? That's how I try to live my life and all that. And you have to have a good balance.
Could you feel yourself improving over the course of your injury hardship year and then this year? Could you just feel that you had some momentum going into the postseason? During the injury time, you get a lot of doubt. So just that there was not only room to go up after I came back from injury. Like you go pretty far down in your mind and think, like for me, I was just like, I wonder if my body's ever going to be the same. And it's like, it takes a long time to get over some of those fears, but it was a steady climb once I started coming back. Once my body started getting stronger, my weight was getting heavier, so that helped my muscles get a little bigger, and I was lifting really hard, so that made my injuries feel better. And as time moved on, I just like everything fell into place. I started wrestling really, really well once the season started, and I just carried that momentum. I kept the same approach, whether it was the first match of the year or the NCAA finals. Yeah.
Anthony, what did Donnie Pritzloff do for you?
It means a lot to me. I mean, he almost got me to go to Michigan. He was the one recruiting me there, the heaviest. And I just had a great connection since he started recruiting me. He's been my guy. And when he got the job at Rutgers, I was so pumped. It was like one of those things in my head. I was like, this has to be meant to be. Like, we're gonna get there. Like, I was gonna go to Michigan and wrestle for Donnie, and now my sophomore year he's at Rutgers coaching me. It's like one of those things. And we clicked right away. We had a lot of time, just one-on-one training sessions. That helped probably the most, and even more than that, his mind from the sport and outside of the sport. He's helped the process turning a boy into a man in my life. So I know for a fact he's done it for a lot of other guys too. And he's a great guy, humble guy, and someone that like everyone should want to look to be like a little bit more.
How's your family been in all this? You seem to be a family guy. I think you wanted to get out to your family after you won. What's their response been after you won a national championship?
It's been good. I mean, my family's also been getting a lot of support. Just my dad owns a family business in town, so a lot of people come into his store and just really excited. And we're a wrestling town where I'm from. It's the best high school sport in our town for a long time, so everyone just loves it. They've been watching, posting on Facebook and all their social media. So that's been awesome for all of us. But it's been hard to actually just get some time just to hang out and lay low for a little, but I'm sure I'll get it in the next few weeks.
What's the wrestling culture like in Jersey? Is there like a divide between northern Jersey and southern Jersey with the wrestling culture? Can you explain that a little bit to us?
I'd say definitely. I'd say like all the areas have their own little cliques, and going into college, like there's always like there's always like groups of a couple guys on the team that are like very close, or you train at the same clubs, and then the South Jersey guys are always a little different than the North Jersey guys. You throw in a guy from Oregon in there, and he's just it's a good group. But most of our Jersey guys all have the same kind of personality. A lot of Guidos, a lot of tough guys that think they're tougher than they are.
What's it when you break barriers though? Hey, you go through and you get it done, and that's a hard thing. And John Smith talked about this with his brother Pat. He said Pat Smith is the greatest wrestler of all time because he had to break barriers. What's it like to break barriers? Because Rutgers hasn't done this before, and no one's been a 4-time All-American in that program. Yeah. You're it. What's it like to break through and do this?
It feels awesome right now, but at the same time, it feels like we set the expectation now. We have to maintain it and only get better, which is exciting because it sets a new standard. And, I like that part of it, but it's also has like a double-edged sword. At the same time, breaking through the barrier is just a huge accomplishment, and it shows that New Jersey athletes and any athlete can come to Rutgers and become a national champ. We have all the tools. And we have everything that the best has. We're willing to do more.
Do you feel like it's done anything mentally already for the other guys in the team? Have you noticed anything different now that you have 2 champs?
Yeah, guys have been really hungry to get in the room. It was like 2 or 3 days after NCAAs. The room was full at our RTC practice. So guys are excited right now, and the best part about winning the 2 championships is like all the guys in the team and all the other athletes at Rutgers are just as excited. It's just a really good atmosphere, and everyone really believes that we were going to get here, and believes that we can stay here. I mean, we have a great group of athletes across all our sports, and we all think our time is now. So.
I know that you said you want to be on that freestyle scene. You want to make an Olympic team, win an Olympic gold medal. Do you see yourself maneuvering around? Do you want to get out to Colorado Springs a little bit and test the waters out there? How does that work for you?
I'm actually driving up to Cornell with 2 teammates right now. We're going to a training camp for a couple of days. So we'll be training Yianni, Jordan Oliver, Dake, Guido. A couple of their guys are there on the team. So, that's another reason why coaching might have to wait a little, because I want to be able to train where I need to train and get better right now. And this is the time to do it, I feel like.
What was your early training environment like? Let's go way back to when you were a kid. Did you go to a lot of national tournaments? Did you go to those with your dad? How did that play out early?
I did a lot. I was always very, what am I looking for? I was always very aggressive. I was aggressive towards getting my mom and dad to take me to tournaments. My brother was 7 years older wrestling in high school, so my dad was with him a lot. And there was a lot of times I'd make my mom take me to camps and tournaments, and she'd be coaching in my corner, not knowing, just yelling. But I went to like church house camps and got to work out with Dave Rutherford growing up. I went to pretty much all the clubs in New Jersey, just wherever the partners were at the time. But a lot of my training was just done at home in South Plainfield for the most part. We had a great program, great youth program. We produced, in my high school graduating class, we had 3 Division I All-Americans, and one was a Division III All-American. So I had studs all around me my whole life, and that's what really helped.
Was there a moment in high school when you know you were going to finish your career undefeated?
Once I got, probably through my freshman year undefeated, I had a good confidence about it. But I tried to never make the goal to go undefeated. It was always just about being a state champ, and those little goals I think about day to day. But the main goal was always just to be a state champ for the year. And I broke it down day by day before then, and I didn't ever look at it like I needed to be an undefeated 4-time state champ. It's more just I wanted to really win states every year.
I haven't seen the match, but I have to imagine when you won that 4th championship and you went undefeated that there had to be a pretty big ovation. Do you remember what that was like?
Yeah, Mike Gray of Cornell came back because he was the first 4-time state champ in New Jersey and like gave me an award. And, it was really cool. It was a really cool experience at a young age. I wish I was able to take it in a little more looking back at it, but I was super focused, almost so focused, like I was looking on to like what was next, and it was awesome. It was awesome looking back at it. And I'm able to definitely appreciate it. I'm just saying, at the time, I remember thinking like I felt like I was ready to win an NCAA title then.
Is there a rivalry between Jersey and New York?
Not really. I'd say no.
It isn't?
I'd say more arguments on our own team about whether it's Fort Burley or Taylor Ham.
Oh, yeah?
You don't know what that is, bro.
I don't.
It's like a breakfast meat. They serve it in like New Jersey and New York. But
okay.
North Jersey people call it Taylor Ham. South Jersey people call it pork roll.
Okay. So it's a food argument.
Yeah. Someone did actually a cutout when Suriano was squared up with DeSanto, and he's like, pork roll and Taylor Ham.
I think I kind of remember that a little bit. I don't know if Andy remembers that or not, but it seems like I remember something about that. So you're training up at Cornell. What else you want to do? Just a little downtime. What do you like to do for anything outside of the mat? What's your MO? What do you like to do?
I like to lay low, hang out with my friends. I guess I would say just enjoying my time with my family, my friends, and my teammates. When I was on the team at Rutgers, I always loved just playing video games and hanging out with the guys.
What's your go-to video game?
I'm really not good at any, but I'd say my favorite is playing NBA 2K on Xbox One.
Okay. Is that a big thing? Like, do you have a culture there at Rutgers where you have video games and there's tournaments and guys play that a lot?
Yeah, there is. I'd say most of the guys. There's always 5 guys on the team every cycle of guys that don't play video games. But majority of the guys are like big Fortnite and shooting game kind of players playing Xbox Live, talking smack to each other. And then there's always nights where there's tournaments for all the sport video games, big brackets. That's the kind of group of guys we are.
Anthony, I want to go back to your 4th state title run. You beat Mekhi Lewis in the semis. You guys ever talk about that match? How'd that match go?
That was one of my tougher matches. Actually, that was probably the toughest match that I've run that year. I snuck a takedown in the second period, and that was really it. That was the only action. It was a low-scoring match. He's super athletic, and I remember thinking he felt real strong, and I just did what I had to do to get to the finals. But he was definitely probably the next best guy in the weight that year. We just got placed on the same side of the bracket because of cheating.
Hey, we've appreciated this, man. This is a lot of fun. We're excited that you're going to keep wrestling, and it was really cool to see you and Nick Suriano.
I am too. I mean, I just nothing's finalized yet, so I just can't really say much more.
Hey, we get it, man, but we're just excited that you had this opportunity and took advantage of your 6th year. It was a big year for Rutgers, greatest year in Rutgers program history.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. I just want to get it out there that I'm only 23 years old and not 30.
That's a good plug, man. That's a good plug.
Yeah, just got to get it out there.
All right. Hey, all the best. Hey, all the best on your playing video games too. We know you got some game on that. Let's up the game there. Let's be a national champion video game player too.
Yeah. I got to find a hobby or something.
We appreciate this, man. Congratulations.
All right. Thank you, guys. I appreciate your time.
All right. That was a 2019 NCAA champion, Anthony Ashnault. Great story there, Andy. Got a guy that goes undefeated for 4 years in high school, gets the 6th year, and then has an undefeated year his senior year after being a 3-time All-American, bumps up a weight class and gets it done. Really cool.
As you mentioned, breaking barriers.
It's tough.
Setting trends out there at Rutgers. Then certainly, overcoming some things. Like we talked about at the top of the show with guys that took a little bit different path than others. That didn't have a gold-plated path all the way throughout, though Anthony Ashnault, tremendous success in high school, also had to overcome some things here in his college career.
And anytime you can pair it up and you get two guys that reach that high bar, I just think it makes this year that much more special. And for Nick Suriano to do it and then Anthony Ashnault to do it, that's more than breaking barriers. I think that's smashing doors down, because you look at what this year looked like. I think Penn State had 2, and then it was Rutgers had 2. And they were the only teams with multi-champions. Yeah,
look at how many Big Ten and NCAA champs came out of Jersey, where if they can start locking down the borders, look out for the Scarlet Knights.
I did see that. Yeah, I think they were probably the most successful team this year at the NCAA tournament. I saw that breakdown somewhere, and I'm glad you brought that up, because Jersey really does have
Cassar from Jersey.
Yeah, I mean, it was
Ashnault and Suriano, Mekhi Lewis.
Yeah, so 4 out of the 10 were from Jersey of the national champions. I don't want to
forget anybody, but Spencer Lee from PA, Suriano from Jersey, Yianni's from New York, Ashnault from Jersey, Nolf from PA, Mekhi Lewis from Jersey, Zahid Valencia from California, Drew Foster from Burlington, Iowa, 97, Bo Nickel from Texas, and then heavyweight Cassar from Jersey. So 4 out of the 10 from Jersey. 40%. What they have 6 Big Ten champs, I think, when you combine Suriano, Rivera, Miles Martin in that group, along with Cassar. Whom am I forgetting here? Ashnault obviously is 5. I'm trying to remember if I'm forgetting somebody there. Hope I'm not.
Well, if you do, please forgive us, because we're fallible and we're going to miss someone. But hey, regardless.
I think I'm right. I'm right with 5.
But still, 40% of the national final.
50% of the Big Ten.
My gosh, that's incredible. So for
Joey McKenna.
Well, there you go.
6.
Okay. 6. Man, it's just, when you hear those numbers, that's strong work. And it's not like you're going against some states that are schmucks here either. You got some other states that have some real firepower. And for those 2 guys to do it. And I'm going to be really interested to see how this springboards Rutgers into the next level, because it's going to be harder for Suriano to win it next year. No doubt about it. That weight class doesn't taper down. Yeah. It's still going to be hard, and for him to get back there and then be the first 2-timer in program history. But you got to take a page a little bit from what Cale and Tom Ryan are doing. You got to box in your state somehow. And I think this is going to really help Rutgers' cause to have 2 champs, because you can point to it and say, we got it done, and look at our tournament. That's only going to help. Mm-hmm. And there are high expectations coming from New Jersey, and Ashnault talked about that a little bit. But I think if you talk to Scott Goodale, you talk to Anthony Ashnault, I think having Nick Suriano there really took a lot of pressure off. There's just no doubt that having that piece there, because if you're the only guy and you carry that crown, that, hey, this is the guy, and then someone gets to carry the crown with you, it's certainly going to help. Final thoughts on the 2019 championships. We get to close this out. It's always a little bit sad when you have to close out a championship, but we've had lots of discussion this year about PDI. We've talked about individuals that have made a difference. We've talked about Bo Nickel maybe being the most dangerous wrestler in the history of college wrestling. If you have a takeaway that you would encapsulate the 2019 season, what would that be?
I think we're probably just going to think back to Nickel and Nolf and their greatness, and a couple tremendous all-time greats moving on after this year. And then the kind of the dawn of a new era, right? With guys like Mekhi Lewis and Dayton Fix and Gable Steveson coming in, and Spencer Lee and Yianni Diakamahalis winning their second, Zahid Valencia repeating there. We're still stocked with stars.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I guess I would say on the same vein, when we're talking about Jersey, I think it really is about breaking barriers this year. Mekhi Lewis, again, from New Jersey, first NCAA champion in Virginia Tech history, first individual champion there. And then the first two from Rutgers. Just a year where you're seeing guys come through and proving that you can do it at a lot of different places.
Fresno State having an All-American in year 2 since the program's been reinstated.
Yeah.
A lot more good things to come for Fresno State, I think.
Yeah. Nebraska Wesleyan, if you want to go D3, I think they had their first All-American. So let's give D3 a shout out. So again, it goes with the theme that I felt was this year. It was just that breaking barriers theme. And I think it goes even beyond that with Penn State having 2 3-timers in the same tournament. Just some things are happening right now that really are just fun to see this all play out, because you don't get history like this all of the time. And so that's exciting to see. And hopefully we get more of it in 2020.
Absolutely.
All right. We have been with the John Mellencamp of wrestling. He truly is from a small town. For Andy Hamilton, I'm Kyle Klingman. You have been listening to On the Mat.
This show is part of the Mat Talk Podcast Network. For more wrestling podcasts, head over to MatTalkOnline.com.